to you, Zoe, because you're a health and safety specialist, and people on the face of it might think, what's pay equity got to do with health and safety? But, you know, I think that I'm really keen to hear from you. What's the impact of pay inequality on kind of well-being, workload, mental stress, and the health and safety components that we don't really talk about very much?
Thanks, Amy. My lecturer self wants to be holding a clicker as I say this, just for safety. But so I suppose just to sort of make that connection, and again, this is just over and above the fact that fundamentally pay inequity is wrong, because it is wrong. But to further bolster that, from the health and safety perspective, I see it as part of what we call the psychosocial conditions under which people work. And so when we talk about the psychosocial work environment and psychosocial risk that comes from that, that refers to the way work is designed, organised and managed. So it's things like your workload, your autonomy, your reward, your pay, your opportunities for development, your job security, all sorts of those things, and whether those conditions create a risk of harm to workers. WorkSafe, for example, identifies things like high workload, high work intensity as potential psychosocial hazards. And so I see that the connection with pay inequity being in a few different ways. Firstly, when we have work that is systematically undervalued, as we've heard from Falguni, people have, not getting enough money for the hours you are working. People may be driven to work longer hours, whether that's picking up extra shifts or taking on another job altogether to earn more. And just as a side note, well, I'll talk about this later, maybe not. I should have mentioned this in my opening remarks, but my PhD looked at the experiences of people working multiple jobs, and I'll say it in one sentence. Spoiler, I found that, surprise, surprise, when you're forced into working multiple jobs just to get by out of financial necessity, you have poorer physical and mental health outcomes than if you're not. And I know you're looking at me, you're like, you studied 4 years to find that out, but you know how it is, getting the data and being able to back it up. But so, essentially that, pay inequity and the low pay that comes from that drives work to be intensified. We have to pick up more hours. Workload might be increased as a result, and particularly when we're having to work longer hours and multiple jobs, we've got less time for rest and recovery, and of course whānau and friends. Another aspect from the perspective of what we call, the psychosocial work environment, pay inequity inherently creates that imbalance between the effort people are putting in and the recognition, they're getting in return for their work, and that's not only money, as I can't remember who mentioned that, but also actually just the value you feel that is placed on you. And there's a lot of, sorry, you can hit me with a stick when I get too academic, but there is a lot of occupational health and safety research out there that shows persistent high effort combined with inadequate reward is linked to things like increased strain, even adverse cardiovascular health, increased work stress. And so, when we think about what we get for our work being not just money but respect and being told we appreciate what you're doing, tell me if I'm getting too radical too early on, Amy, but what the axing of the pay equity claims essentially was saying is that, hello, 33 claims, or the tens of thousands of workers affected by that, your work is worth less. And so just that's just like one big psychosocial hazard stick, being told that all those hours, that are being put in, we aren't valuing that. And so that is what we call a psychosocial hazard. If I was trying to be sympathetic to business, which I'm not, but if I was trying to think about doing good business and I was trying to teach my business students about doing good business, there's also obviously the impact on the organisation and the people within it. When essential work is underpaid, recruiting and retaining workers is harder. People are inclined to move to Oz or further afield. Why else would you go somewhere with all those snakes and spiders, So again, those who are left, more workload, more intensity, short-staffed, working faster, more accidents. So sort of trying to not do the full Health and Safety 101 here, but it comes from those different strands, as a psychosocial hazard in itself, but also intensifying work, possibly creating other hazards. So it's not separate, it is ingrained in health and safety, particularly if we want to strive for what healthy and safe work should be. Although, closing comment, not getting too political, we know the current government doesn't care about health and safety either. So, pay equity, health and safety, same struggle.
Awesome. And, we're unabashedly political here because life is political. It's not party political, it's political in that we have to make choices, right? And this is the equity election, and the mana of woman is on the line, right? Because effectively what you've been saying so far is pay equity is about mana. And we need to remember that when we come to vote. So I'll turn to you now, Julie, and because Julie just recently sent me this great article that she's written, which I'd actually read a while ago, but I'd forgotten about, and it's got such a brilliant title. I'm going to read it out.